Merry, merry, happy, happy, and all that lovely stuff. Whether you call it Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, everyone, please enjoy this holiday time that we're given safely. And may, when the clock turns to 24, that being 2024, I hope your life gets better each and every day after that. This will be well, this won't be the last show. I think we'll do Friday. So this won't be the last show before the new year. So I guess we can concentrate on Christmas. Bah,
Well,
humbug. No,
first of
just
all, Merry Crisis and Happy Chrysler to everyone. Welcome back.
says the agnostic.
I am
Oh,
Christian
boy.
on demand.
Oh, what the heck did I just do? I just freaked out my computer. What did I do?
I
What did
don't
I do?
know, sir.
What did I do? I don't know. Let me see. Is it back normal? Oh, maybe. All my files shrunk and went all over the place.
Interesting.
But I didn't think that button was over there. Now let me see if I got this part. Let's see if I got the. There we go. Well, it's so. I guess what I can say is, hello, I'm Frank Stanisci of Candid Frank Live, where you'll find us airing our views here on the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV Sticks, Roku Sticks, and also on Smart TVs 2016 15 forward. Sorry. Now on Candid Frank Live, as usual, is Aaron William Freeland. Well, um, I guess Christmas was interesting. If no for no other reason, Aaron, we did a little bit of driving, and it
Hmm.
wasn't a concern.
Well, that's a good thing. I know getting to see my parents on Christmas Day was like driving through French pea soup. It was just not a lot of fun. But, all things considered, we all made it. Um, Unfortunately, my mother regifted the Christmas cake that she was going to be serving to us and gave it to somebody else. So at about 2:30 on Christmas Day, my father calls me to ask me if I can pop in somewhere and pick up another cake. Unfortunately, we're um, mostly in a Christian neighborhood down here in Mississauga, so everything was all closed. But that's
Oh,
okay.
jeez. Wow. What a tough break.
Uh, you know, first
Uh,
world problems.
well, I think, if nothing else, mothers are very expeditious. They don't have time um, to negotiate. They got to act quickly. That's the job of a mother, I think. So she did what she could quickly to solve a problem, and I think the problem she created, Aaron, I think was secondary.
Oh, it's a minor issue, really. I mean, it's not a big deal at the end of the day to have to try to track down a cake on Christmas Day, especially in the middle of the afternoon. But
As long as it wasn't a cake that you were planning on sacrificing to the deity of the hour.
yeah, no, nothing like that. So
See, you're okay.
in the
There,
end,
there
it
won't
was
be any.
all fine.
There won't be any bad omens. No bad omens were triggered, so that's good. All right, let's talk about sports, and let's start with the Toronto Blue Jays. And well, so they are bringing back Kiermaier, someone who proved to be a pretty good asset for the team defensively.
Yes, this was actually one of those components that a lot of people felt that the Jays needed to lock up. So they brought back center fielder Kevin Kiermaier on a 1-year, $10.5 million deal. This has been confirmed by two industry sources. So as far as we're aware here, as at 1:40 p.m. on Boxing Day when this was initially reported, he's definitely back. Not only does he offer elite defense, his presence also nudges Dalton Varsho into left field, where his range plays up as well. Those two are slated to join George Springer in the outfield next year, which makes the Blue Jays out of the running for Cody Bellinger and Michael Taylor, unfortunately. But the good news is that we're solidifying our outfield now. as opposed to waiting. Um, there's some other moves that the Jays need to make. Most notably, there's a hole at third base that I think they'd like to fill, and I think they actually managed to take a step towards addressing that. But yeah, it's a good thing that they've got Kiermaier locked up for
Yeah, the man you're referring to is Isaiah Kiner Falefa. So they have a guy who can play the outfield, can play third base. It's been well now that they've lost their third baseman. This is uh, not as good a replacement, or at least reputationally speaking, not as good a replacement. But we found from time to time, and Jays fans have witnessed, players that come here that don't have a very large reputation have it grow while being a Blue Jay. Jays are hoping that Falefa will provide that help at third base that you
now. Yeah,
referred.
now it's a 2-year deal worth $15 million. That's 1.5. He had a 241 average with 6 homers, 37 RBI, and 14 stolen bases for the Yankees last season. His career overall is 261 with a 316 OBP and 26 home runs over 6 years with the Rangers in New York. He also earned a Gold Glove back in 2020 when he was with Texas. So this is a good thing for the Jays. And again, there's room to grow, and he is insurance just in case Kiermaier, Varsho, or any of our other outfielders need a day off. He can at least spell them out there without being too detrimental. So, I mean, the other person that the Jays were looking at were Ahmed Rosario as well, but Isaiah Kiner Falefa kind of fills that hole rather nicely.
Well, the question is, will the Detroit Pistons turn their fans into pissed offs?
Yeah, this is one of those things where it's record breaking, but for all of the wrong reasons. So it's the longest actual streak in U.S. sports history was actually the Philadelphia 76ers. This was in 2014-15 and 15-16, which was 28 games. Um, Now, it is important to note that the 13-14 76ers held the record for the longest single losing streak in league history until Tuesday. They lost 26 straight en route to a 19-63 record that wasn't actually the league's worst that year. That went to the Milwaukee Bucks at 15-67. But yeah, that's 27 straight games now for the Detroit Pistons, and 2 more. And man, it's one of the records that I don't think any coach ever wants to have.
Or any fan base.
True.
Nothing that highlights how bad your team is.
At one point, I think we actually kind of joked that they were turning into the Washington Generals of the NBA. So that unfortunately still seems to hold true.
Well, 0 wins is a common thing between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the move to remove handshakes because of brawls that have happened or altercations have happened. I'm not a big fan of doing this. This to me is it feels like giving up on sportsmanship because the threat of violence. When I just wish they could figure out a way to discourage the kind of behavior that requires this change.
Yeah, this is a trend that seems to me shouldn't be a trend at all. I know that there was a handshake quabble in the 2020 World Juniors when Barrett Hayton failed to remove his helmet during Russia's national anthem following a 6-0 loss. But the fact that they've removed handshakes in minor leagues in Newfoundland is one of those things where it's just sort of like
Shake
this
your head.
shouldn't be happening at all. That is just weird, and I mean,
Let's
I get
take
it.
all the cars off the road because some people make or do things they shouldn't do while driving.
Well, I
Baby
mean,
in bathwater.
that's a thing.
Baby in bathwater. I mean, there are so many ways to describe how this is wrong. It's wrong that they've given up on being able to expect or have a level of expectation that sportsmanship. I mean, nothing. I don't think there's anything more important that can be learned in sports than sportsmanship? You know, what is it about losing that's good?
Well, it builds
Opportunities to learn,
character.
right? Well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the overall overreaching. Yeah, I agree with you. That's 100% true. But one of the small things that builds that character is the ability to turn losses into victories, which is possible. And not giving up on the fact that people can't learn that. And to me, not shaking hands at the end of the game fosters, or at least creates more of a, how shall I put this, a feeding ground for a lack of sportsmanship, because now you're taking what happened in that game and you're carrying it on. Whereas with the handshake, well, good luck, good game. You shook hands, you lost, big deal. I think there's closure with that handshake. I think there's a lack of closure without it.
In all the years that I've played hockey, from AAA all the way down to beer league, honestly, no matter how rough the game was, no matter how hotly contested the game was, uh, nothing ever happened in the handshake line, man. Like you shook hands and that was it. It was congratulations, good job. All of it gets forgotten about. You go back to your dressing rooms. I'm not sure where we're at in hockey culture where it's gotten to the point where altercations and punching somebody in the handshake line is acceptable behavior. If your coaches aren't either pulling that kid aside to have a word with them, a word with their parents, or benching the kid voluntarily for the next game for doing something in the line, then you shouldn't be coaching, as far as I'm concerned. You should
Absolutely. and
you should
and
have
the
no
people,
sway over these young men's lives because how you treat what they do in that handshake line is just as important as how they behave themselves in the handshake line.
and make no
Unfortunately,
and make no mistake, Aaron, that the reason they behave the way they do, the ones that misbehave during a handshake, is because they're inspired by the people in the stands, whether it be family or people they trust, who say, "You were ripped off. What happened wasn't right. What happened wasn't fair." And it angers. People stoke anger, and the whole reason for sports is to alleviate that, not ingratiate it, not make it more powerful. It's just crazy.
I there was a coach who was charged with allegedly assaulting a referee during a game involving players as young as 9 in Nova Scotia a couple weeks back. I think we touched on that.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
know. There's no need for that stuff.
nope. But I
It's
mean,
unacceptable.
it's 100% unacceptable. But as coaches, you want to be intense, and as
Absolutely.
coaches, it's all about winning, but it's also about developing and teaching life lessons. You can compete hard, but at the end of the day, respect your opponent and be humble. They've
Winning
got
is
to find a way to get that back into hockey. Alan Letang said it best.
okay. You want to throw the phrase in case people didn't hear it?
Well,
Oh,
we've
oh,
sorry. Go ahead.
no. Just say, you want to repeat the phrase that Latang used?
Oh, you have to compete hard, but at the end of the day, respect your opponent and be humble.
There you go. Okay,
That's the big.
we'll leave it there. Let's talk about the NHL.
Okay.
So the Montreal Canadiens won a hockey game over the Chicago Blackhawks.
Let's be honest here. I think everybody's winning hockey games over the Chicago Blackhawks except the Leafs, which is very leafy. Um, but yeah, was there anything that stuck out about that game to you, Frank?
No, only that the Habs won and the Blackhawks lost, and I believe the new rule is going to stop them from being able to draft number one this year. You can't do it 2 years in a row, I think.
That's interesting. I actually hadn't heard about that, but
You remember when
I
Edmonton had all those in a
yeah,
row,
those like 4 years in a row.
and people were upset about that, and they changed some rules. But I'll find out specifically what it is, whether it's 2 years in a row or three. All right, let's talk about Stutzla and him beating the Penguins with a no overtime winner.
Yeah, so the Penguins have had issues winning lately. Tim Stutzla scored 1 minute and 10 seconds into overtime, and Jacques Martin finally got a win since returning as the Ottawa Senators head coach. Yeah, he scored 5 hole on Alex Nedeljkovic after scramble at the Pittsburgh blue line. Stutzla had a bit of frustration there. He'd been a few games without a goal. Um, this is Martin's 342nd win. For Martin, it had been a couple games since they'd actually won one. Ever since Martin basically took over for DJ Smith, who was fired on December 18th. For those of you who don't remember, Jacques Martin's last stint with Ottawa was from 1996 to 2004. So it has been a while. Chris Letang had a goal and 2 assists for the Penguins. Ricard Raquel ended a 20-game goal drought. Riley Smith had 2 assists, and Nedeljkovic only made 21 saves. The Penguins had won a couple games in a row there, but at 15, 13, and 4, they're not exactly setting the league on fire right now. Pittsburgh actually outshot Ottawa 23-4 in the third period. But Ottawa's goalie stood tall, and that was pretty much it. Pretty awesome.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Velarde. Tallies again his 5th straight game as Bruins top win dropped 3rd in a row.
Yeah, so Velarde is turning out to be one of the biggest components of the trade that the Jets made, and he's been helping them out fantastically here. We've been talking about him glowingly for the past couple of weeks. But he scored for the 5th straight game and also had an assist as they beat the Bruins 5-1 at Canada Life Center. This is also the Bruins' 3rd loss in a row, which means slowly but surely other teams can eventually catch them. It's not that the Bruins are going to be absolutely running away with it this year after their start. So that's a bit of a relief from some of the other prognosticators around the league.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the Flames. Byfield scores 2.
Yeah, Los Angeles has actually been finding their way a little bit lately. They've won 3 of their past 4 games. Coleman had a shorthanded and a power play goal for Calgary, so that was nice. But Quentin Byfield was a big story. He scored twice to help the LA Kings to a 5-3 win over the Flames at Crypto.com Arena. So that was neat. Doughty and Anze Kopitar had 2 assists for the Kings, who are 19, 7, and 4. Cam Talbot made 29 saves on the back end. So PLD actually put Los Angeles back up 2-1 at 15:20, tipping in a Jordan Spence shot just after a power play had expired. It was actually his first goal in 13 games since November 18th against the St. Louis Blues. So he was on a bit of a schneid.
Let's talk about the Oilers and how they're moving on up.
They actually got 4 goals in the third period to hold off the Rangers and actually win the game. Funnily enough, it was the only 4 goals that they scored in the entire game. Zach Hyman and Evander Kane scored 1 minute and 10 seconds apart, and Warren Fogley and Ryan McLeod each had a goal and an assist. Who scored 4 in the third, and their 6-3 win of the New Jersey Devils on Thursday. They repeated that full goal performance in the third to beat the New York Rangers at MSG on Friday. So everything seems to be working for the Oilers, at least in the past few games. They just recently finished off an 8-game win streak. So it's good to see them having a little bit more fun out there.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the Knuckleheads.
This is a team that's very quietly been going about their work in the most efficient way possible. As it currently stands, the Canucks are actually 23, 9, and 3 with 49 points, which puts them, believe it or not, first in the NHL, right ahead of the New York Rangers. And nobody's really talking about them or the fact that they've done as well as they have. As it currently stands, they've extended their point streak to 9 games, which is a good thing. Kuzmenko had 2 goals in his return to the lineup. Rick Tocchet said, you got to get home for 3 days, and the NHL takes a break and guys can enjoy their families. We definitely need a break. They need to get away from the rink and be with their families and enjoy it, and they should. We'll worry about everything else when they come back. So glad to see them actually get the win that they needed. San Jose is unfortunately now on a 5-game losing streak, which, wow, anybody can tell you that sucks.
That's terrible. Okay, let's talk about the Leafs and 2 goals by Matthews.
This was a bit of a how to say this. This was a game they needed to win. Columbus came in and beat the Sabres 9-4. The Sabres then turned around and beat the Leafs 9-3. Going into this game, heading into the Christmas break, the Leafs needed to get this one under their belts. Matthews has now scored in 7 straight games. Nylander's renewed point streak has now hit 11 games. There was a scary moment with about 18 seconds left in the first period, where Sean Corrali got pinballed between a couple Maple Leafs, and then took a puck in the gut before getting helped off the ice. The bench was actually really concerned. They actually reached over the bench to grab a linesman in order to get him to blow the whistle because the referee didn't appear to be listening. But as it turns out, medical staff were summoned just as a precaution, and he is recovering. So that's a good thing for Sean Corrali.
Absolutely. So to clarify, finally, the NHL ruled that a franchise can win the lottery no more than twice in a 5-year span. That isn't exclusive to the first overall pick. It means a team can't advance by reason of lottery, win more than twice in a 5-year span. So this was brought on because of Edmonton and all those, drafts that they got first. They received first overall. So that's exactly what the rule is that they changed. I clarify. So there it sits clarified, and with what we know to be true, or little research. Okay, let's talk about some shenanigans, and let's talk about the political system in Canada, and let's go to Nova Scotia, where the beloved Oaklawn Farm Zoo closes its doors after 4 decades in business.
Yeah, this was a tough decision. Elfrog, Nova Scotia, had the Oaklawn Farm Zoo. They made their announcement on Tuesday morning on Facebook. Says they're retiring, but they have arranged new homes for all of the animals that are at the zoo. Councillor Tim Harding, who represents the Ellsford area on municipal council, said the closure is a major loss. It's true. This parking lot was usually jam-packed during the spring, summer, and fall months. Not only did the zoo bring in a lot of tourists to the Annapolis Valley area, but also employed a handful of locals as well as students in the summer. So it was a major economic driver for them. A lot of schools would bring busloads of kids there for field trips each and every year. But yeah, this is one of those things where the owners are like, well, we've put in our time. I think it's time that we enjoy the fruits of our labors. So generations have seen it. I'm glad that the owners are going out the way that they've gone out. But unfortunately, it's going to leave a hole in the community that isn't going to be easy to replace.
Yeah. Let's talk about occupancy rates surging in Quebec emergency rooms after dropping earlier this month.
Yeah, this is an issue that they've been having. Occupancy rates, in Quebec's ER are shooting up again after a small period of reprieve that actually began the week before Christmas. Website Index Santé shows the average ER occupancy rate at 6 a.m. was 112%, up from 95% the previous day. 8 of Quebec's regions show a rate of over 100%, including Montreal at 118, Laurentians at 148, and Lanaudière at 138. The situation is slightly better in QC and Chaudière-Appalaches, where rates range between 92 and 96% occupancy. But the fact that the wait time is going up and the occupancy rates are going up is a concern. I know that last week, and we mentioned this on the show, the province's health minister asked Quebecers to avoid using ERs, noting that a large percentage of people who go for a consult there don't actually have an urgent health problem. They just don't want to go to their doctor.
There you go. It is what it is.
Yep.
Let's talk about Ontario, site for Canada's underground nuclear waste repository to be selected next year.
So this is a critical milestone for Canada's 175-year-long plan to bury nuclear waste. There are 2 pairs of Ontario communities set to decide if they'd be willing hosts. Later next year, they're predicting 3rd quarter, early 4th. The Nuclear Waste Management Organization plans to select the site for Canada's deep geological repository, where millions of bundles of used nuclear fuel rods will be placed in a network of rooms connected by cavernous tunnels as deep below the earth as the CN Tower is tall, provided, of course, everything goes according to plan. The sites are down to the Wabigoon Lake, Ojibwe Nation Ignace area in northwestern Ontario, and the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation South Bruce area in southern Ontario. The municipalities and First Nations are planning votes for next year. It's the culmination of a years-long information gathering process. Um, the problem here is obviously there's the obvious gap between those that don't mind having it there and those that are concerned about doomsday scenarios and what's the worst that can happen.
And
So
why Native communities?
there's that's a big concern as well.
That's a white elephant. That's a big elephant.
It's a very, very large concern.
Okay, let's go over to Manitoba, and it looks like they've moved forward to universal school meal programs.
So, newly minted Premier Wab Kinnew says the program will be in place by next school year in September. This is a plan for a universal meal program. They're putting up $1.5 million to eliminate a wait list at the Child Nutrition Council of Manitoba for the remainder of the current school year. Now, this nonprofit council grants money for meals and snack programs in schools that apply for help, and there were 51 programs on a wait list as of earlier this year. One of Wab Kinnew's promises before being elected in October was a universal school nutrition program that would cost the province an estimated $30 million a year. It's still in the early stages of development, and there is no proposed cost right now. But by the beginning of school next year, it should be in place. And it's not that every kid in Manitoba needs to eat as part of the school program, but it has to reach across all the school divisions and regions of the province, what I think is part of what's delaying it.
Sometimes it's not just about affording a decent meal. Sometimes people just don't have the time to have a good meal, and children need to have good meals, good,
For
healthy
sure.
meals. Okay, let's go to Saskatchewan, and Premier Moe says it's unfortunate for Saskatchewan to break federal emission laws. Unfortunate?
Well, in a recent year-end interview with CP, the premier said it's unfortunate the province won't follow federal law by not remitting the carbon levy to Ottawa starting January 1st, but it's a decision he believes is fair. He says it's unfortunate that there'll be a violation of federal law led by our provincial minister here in Saskatchewan, but that violation is coming about by the province making the very same decision on behalf of its residents as the federal government did on behalf of residents in Atlantic Canada. What he's referring to there is Prime Minister Trudeau announcing people who used heating oil are exempt from paying the carbon levy over the next 3 years, which largely helps those in Atlantic provinces. Moe and Alberta Premier Danielle Smith had asked Trudeau to extend that exemption to cover all other forms of heating, including natural gas, but that was denied. So Moe's Saskatchewan party has then upped the ante, saying, well, Sask Energy won't remit the federal carbon levy starting January 1st, so residents can save on their own bills. We'll have to see how that works out.
Albertans are concerned with 2024 coming, the calendar switching from 23 to 24. It means wildfire season is closer.
Yeah, and the thing is, there are still dozens of fires still burning in Alberta. This past wildfire season hasn't really ended. It's just sort of continued to stagger on. In Yellowhead County, for example, 36 homes have been lost. Multiple communities were evacuated more than once due to smoke from the wildfires. By early May, that particular county was dealing with 200 kilometers worth of fire fronts. And within 2 months, 350,000 hectares of forest had burned to the ground. County residents in Yellowhead spent their entire summer on alert as basically fires burned out of control near communities like Edson. Now that the spring and summer of 2024 are coming closer, every direction they turn, they have more fires starting. And the fact that it's going to be a drier winter too is also going to cause concerns.
Let's go over to BC, and what you just said isn't happening in BC. Heavy rains are there, and wind gusts are soaking BC.
Lucky them. This is basically on the heels of a wind and rain event that brought power outages to some Christmas evening and are into Boxing Day. Another wind and rain event is approaching coastal British Columbia, but this time it's not going to be as bad. Small comfort as that may be, the rain will be isolated for Victoria, but it's the winds gusting between 60 and 80 kilometers an hour that are going to be one of the issues for them. Metro Vancouver is going to be seeing some breezy conditions Wednesday evening and overnight with winds of 50 to 70 kilometers an hour. Downtown is expected to be on the lower end of the gusts, while Delta and White Rock will be on the higher end. In the Vancouver Island ranges, we'll be picking up rainfall somewhere in the neighborhood of about 100 millimeters worth of rain. So this is in stark contrast to the droughts that they were experiencing this summer. I'm not sure how a lot of Vancouver residents feel about it, but at least they're getting rain now.
Absolutely. Well, for those of you that are not really suit fans, but from time to time been forced to buy a suit, one of the places that people went who didn't know much about suits was Harry Rosen. They're pretty dependable on a reasonable price for people to have a suit. Many who buy, don't buy suits all the time. So, he had a great way of introducing people to suits.
For sure. Harry ran the company with his brother Lou from 1954 until 2005, when he handed the reins to his son Larry, who has been running it since. But yeah, 3 generations, nearly 70 years. An Order of Canada recipient in 2004. He was a philanthropist in that he helped with the Canadian Paraplegic Association, the Corporate Fund for Breast Cancer, Cancer Care Fund, the Mount Sinai Friends for Life campaign, the United Way, CAMH, and the University Health Network. I actually had a couple suits of his myself. Haven't had one for a while now, but one of the suits that's still in my closet is one of his.
Yeah, Yorkdale's where I got mine.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. On sad news, if I say Tom Smothers, it may not have as much relevance as it deserves. But if I say Smothers Brothers, it might raise people's recognition of who Tom Smothers is. He passed away, Aaron, at 86.
Yeah, he unfortunately passed away. They released a statement. The National Comedy Center released a statement on behalf of his family on Wednesday that said that Tom Smothers had passed away Tuesday at home in Santa Rosa, California, following a battle with cancer. Dick was understandably devastated. Their show actually premiered in the fall of 1967. They actually thought that the Smothers Brothers were going to fail because they put them up against Bonanza for their first little while. But they, the Smothers Brothers were known for having on the Who, Buffalo Springfield. They ridiculed the establishment. They railed against the Vietnam War. Tom and Dick were an integral part of the comedy scene when I was growing up. And I know even in the late 70s, early 80s, it wasn't odd to see them on before a Maple Leaf game on Saturday nights. Them and the Wayne and Schuster show were, I think, two of the things that were most formative when it came to developing my sense of humor.
Yeah,
their musical numbers were always great. I'll miss them.
Yeah, same time as Laugh-In, there were TV shows that were opinionated, and they were the Smothers Brothers. They got into some hot water a couple of times because of the stuff that they said, but they believed in what they said and they cared about our community. If you want to expand it to the world, they cared about the world, and peace and all that stuff was a big deal for them, as it was for many of us at that time. I was alive and remembered everything that they said and knew how important it was. And we need that all the time. We need people who have microphones to spout common sense and defend decency and honesty and that kind of stuff. It's getting harder and harder for the truth to, I don't know, find a place to be heard today. It seems if it has to be not true to be able to hear it nowadays. People want to hear things that aren't true. It's sad, And they were a great example of, also they were a summer replacement show, Aaron. That wasn't a thing until they did it. They became so successful in the summer that summer replacement shows became very popular. And so they did a lot in the history of television. Musically, it was sort of their music was kind of a sidebar to what they were doing. It was the words, as funny as that sounds, the music was very important. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to say it wasn't, but the words are what they were known for, the words that they said.
No, their double entendres and their wordplay were above reproach. They were absolutely fantastic when it came to that sort of thing.
Hilarious. Well, what else can we talk about? So it appears we haven't mentioned about the new leadership for the Ontario Liberals.
This is true.
Shall we mention it now?
Oh, I think it might
Former
be a perfect time to
former
bring that up.
former guest of Candid Frank Life is now.
Yep, and that would be former Mississauga Mayor Bonnie Crombie. Now, after she won the leadership race, she had announced back on December 17th that she would be stepping down. But she's going to keep working with the chief administrative officer to ensure a smooth and orderly transition. She is Mississauga's second mayor. They've only had two since 1978. That would be Hazel McCallion and now Bonnie Crombie, who was basically anointed by Hazel when she retired a few years back. Sherry Lichterman says that although Crombie is leaving in January, it could actually be June before a by-election decides her replacement. Unfortunately, it's still too early to sort of decide who will be running to lead Ontario's third largest city. Now, Crombie had said that she was going to try to make sure that the budget got passed. That way, in between her leaving and the actual by-election itself, there's not going to be any sort of hiccups because the funding and the money will already be in place.
Absolutely. For me, it's the Liberal Party, the Ontario Liberal Party has had difficulty finding a leader that can hang around, longer than one cycle. It's been a tough position to hold and even get elected in. Usually party leaders get elected just because they're party leaders. The Liberal Party of Ontario has been the exception, I guess, that makes the rule. There's no guarantee you're getting elected if you're the leader of the Liberal Party, apparently. So we'll see what happens with Bonnie Crombie. She's the daughter-in-law, was the daughter-in-law since her the tiny perfect mayor is the father-in-law. So she comes from political interest roots, and yes, I like the idea personally that they're bringing somebody who is a mayor of a big city that has a little bit of experience getting elected, comes from a multicultural community, maybe possibly an advantage or otherwise. I don't know. That's up to the voters to decide that. But she has an understanding of running government, and she's not inexperienced, and I think that's really important. And from what I understand and what I hear, she's interested in rebuilding the Liberal Party of Ontario because it needs rebuilding. They have not somehow done what I think they should be able to do. The Liberal Party should be competitive against the Conservatives, but there seems to be an issue there. I don't know what it is, Aaron. Maybe you do, but they got to figure out how to do that if that party's going to become, if it matters going in the future.
I'm honestly not 100% sure what it is they need to do. I mean, prior to Dalton McGuinty wearing out his welcome between 2003 and 2013, I think one of the longest serving members that we had as a leader was David Peters, who led the party from February 82 to 1990. From there we had Nixon, Elston, Bradley, Lynn McLeod was the first female leader and first female leader of the opposition, but that was 92 to 96. and after that was Kathleen Wynne, who ran out her term in 5 years and was poof gone. Stephen Del Duca led the party from outside the legislature and was elected the mayor of Vaughan in 2022. And even then, his was only a 2-year stint from March 7th,
Yeah.
2020 to August 3rd, 2022. So, you know, best of
Is
luck to
it, is
Bonnie
it
on this one.
is it that the party's too volatile?
I
Do you know what
think
I mean?
there's a lack of stability.
Well,
So it
volatility
could be
speaks
that.
to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it's not that they're politically explosive or anything like that.
No, 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 no.
It's there.
I
It's
mean
too
the
much going on.
volatility, to be specific, the volatility of the thinking of liberals. And I don't know, sometimes I think they're a little they're a little too hither and yon, you know, like they go they there's too wide, not an umbrella. The umbrella can never be too wide. All right, the umbrella, the people in it can never be too wide. But I do think that there has to be um, a message that most Ontarians can hear, to try to reach out to, you know, to smaller groups, and make them the focus, alienates the average Ontarian, and I think they lack the ability to be heard, you know, by average Ontarians, and I hope that doesn't sound like I'm saying ignore minorities, ignore, you know, small groups of people. No, that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is you have to get into power, Aaron. You have to relate to the majority, and my point is they're not.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing is, I don't think they've had the right leader for a while now, and I think they're more concerned about advancing their own agendas than they are in actually having town halls and addressing the needs of their constituents directly.
Ooh, ooh, so the ears aren't working as good as the mouth.
Exactly. They talk a great game, but unfortunately, I don't think they're providing all of the right support to their members or to, the party faithful. That's I think one of the issues that they're looking at.
So, you know what? That fits in what I'm talking about, volatility. It
Hmm.
fits when the message being delivered is one that the people they're delivering it to don't care about. That's not a good thing.
No.
That's essentially, yes, that is a problem. And to expand on your comment about town halls, really it comes down to political parties listening to the people, and not worrying too much about, well, I'm not sure I want to do that because I don't think people don't want to hear that. Well, if the people are telling you that, whatever it is, then you should listen to them. Now, as leaders, there's also that part where you listen to people and make sure what they think they can get. And if they can't, you have to be honest with them and explain to them what the next option could be. You
Mhm.
know, it comes down to the Liberal Party, if I can put it in a sentence, are so busy trying to deliver on everybody's wants, they're ignoring everybody's needs. That's my opinion. If I were to put it in a nutshell, we have to really worry about getting people their needs, because the more people we can do more for more people if we're worried about needs rather than wants.
This is very true. And that is, I think, what we need to be very cognizant of, what the people who will be voting in this particular election need to be very, very keenly aware of. Um, I would say don't vote for the person that you think sounds the best. Work for the person that's going to work best with your needs, and that's
And
and that's
do
very
your
important.
homework. Do
Yes,
your
read the
homework.
platforms.
Are their promises hollow? Are they making promises that they know aren't gonna happen, aren't gonna work? Or are they making promises that are realistic, that are goal oriented? So yeah, the problem with politics today is, it seems more and more that it everything's a code word. Even when, and I'm not saying there's an intention. I mean, everything people say is an interpretation. We interpret it. Everybody interprets it because they hear opinions on the internet that are groundless or senseless or just plain stupid, but they are convenient to help them with their thinking process. So we really need to be more realistic in our goals, and I think more understanding of getting what we need to move. I don't know what's the responsibility of government. What do we as people need of our government, and what contribution are we required to make so that that government reflects what we want? Well, it's about doing your homework, and it's about, and by homework I mean get to know who the person you're voting for. And if you believe that doesn't matter who's in your community and you're voting for the leader, which in most cases in Canadian voting, that's really what you're doing, right? A lot of times it doesn't matter who the person in your community is, but you should pay attention to see if maybe that person, because as we're finding out with the Liberal Party of Ontario, they could end up being the leader. Because there's there, there's great opportunity that changes in the future. So there is some importance on voting for a person because of them stand alone, and then of course the effect of the leader and the party, very important. And I think it's the most important thing, and that's why the people that are running need to help the message of the party get delivered, whether you're a conservative, liberal, or NDP or Green Party. Your message has to help the party advance what it's trying to do. So it's just difficult to vote for people when you're not sure whether they're aligned. Like, am I voting for this guy? Am I voting for the party? It'd be
As,
great if, go ahead. Anyway.
I was going to say, as a final thought on this, I think we need to make sure that people do their research. Go to their website, read up on your candidate. I know it sounds boring, but seriously, read their platforms. Find the candidate that works for you and the party that works for you, and put your vote towards and your energy towards getting them into power.
And don't forget, it's not always about who you vote for changing things immediately. You got to think of it also as building a foundation and growing. You have to vote for people who you think will or at least closer to the way you're thinking, so that they get elected, and then the next time you vote, there's more of those people. You vote for somebody else like that as well. So it's a you need to be thinking further in the forward, where you realize even if you only offer a vote and you think that it's not enough, you're wrong, because it's all of us together that can make things better. And that's, I think, the goal that every government official should have, to make our country better.
Exactly.
All right. He's Aaron William Freeland, of course. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Candid Frank Live, seen Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 6 p.m. till 6:30 or 7, depending on which day. Other news and entertainment and sports programming is offered here on the SpanglishWorld.ca. Please enjoy it as we enjoy giving it to you. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, live it. Watching is something we hope you'll do. And of course, join me on Candid Frank on YouTube. Ciao for now. Have a great time.